Hey there, it's Nina here with Walla Stamping. Thank you for stopping by my craft room today. We're going to be making this adorable little box for this Lent chocolate bunny. Of course, sometimes these bunnies come in a box. Sometimes I like the box, sometimes I don't. So I decided for this little bunny that didn't have a home, I was going to make a little box for him. And I created it with this window so that you could see him when you're looking at the package. I think it turned out really cute. It's very simple. Of course, you can doll it up a little more if you want to by using some designer series paper to decorate it with, but I just decided to keep mine just plain and simple. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how it's made. The supplies that we're going to be using today to create this little chocolate bunny box is I'm going to be using my Berry Burst cardstock. I have a couple of pieces here. One of them is cut to 9 3/8 by 6 5/8. The other piece is cut to 8 by 6 5/8. And then I kept one of the scraps that was left over after cutting so that I can use that for some of my layering ovals. I have a piece of Whisper White that is 3 by 4, as well as the same size in some gold foil sheet, and then I have a piece of window sheet that is 3 3/4 by 4 1/2. I'm also going to be using my metallic edge Berry Burst ribbon, a couple, or actually 4, of my layering ovals, got a bone folder, some of my Stampin' Blends markers, my Berry Burst ink, and the stamp set we're going to be using is A Good Day. Of course, you'll need some paper snips and some adhesives. I'm going to be using my tear and tape, some dimensionals, and some mini glue dots. We'll start our project, and the two pieces of cardstock that I have, this one is the 9 3/8 by 6 5/8. I'm referring to this one as side A. This is the side that's going to have the little window cut out of it for our bunny to peek through. The smaller size, which was 8 by 6 5/8, I'm referring to this as side B. So throughout the instructions, if I say side A, you'll know that it's the front, and side B is basically the back. So we're starting with the front, side A. I've got it in my scoring tool on the 9 3/8 across the top, and then this is how we're going to score this. I'm going to start out and score at 1/2 of an inch, then at 2 5/8, and then at 7 3/8. Then I'm going to turn this a quarter turn to the right, and I'm going to score again at 1/2 inch, and then at 2 5/8 of an inch. Alright, so now let's put in side B. I've got this in. Well, let's just start this one the same way we did the first one, with the long portion across the top. So I have the 8" going across the top, and we're just going to score here at 2 inches. Then I'm going to turn that so that my 2" mark is at the bottom, and I'm going to score at 1/2 of an inch, and then again at 2 5/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to turn this back to the way that I had it in the beginning. So there is my 8" across the top. Here's my 2" score line. Then we're going to come over here to 6 3/4 of an inch, and we're only going to score down to that second horizontal score line right there. And this is just a cutting guide for us right here. We also need to do a little bit of extra scoring on this piece as well. So here is my 1/2 inch score line, and then this is my 2 5/8 inch score line. So I've got the 9 3/8 across the top. I'm going to score at 8 inches, and just like we did just a second ago, I'm going to score down and stop at that second horizontal score line, and this is going to be a cutting reference for us also. So we'll go ahead and fold and burnish all of our score lines. Now, of course, these little short ones that we did, you don't need to fold or burnish those. Those are just cutting references. So we'll begin by trimming out side B. This is the back. So I have my two little score lines right here and my horizontal score line there. So what I'm going to do is just cut straight up this score line, and I'm going to stop when I reach that first horizontal score line. I'm going to do the same thing right over here. Then this little piece that you see, we don't need that, so I'm going to cut that away, but I'm going to cut that at an angle. This will be the tab that'll hold our box together. Now this rectangle here, I said that this was a cutting line, this little short score line that I made. Actually, this little portion right here we're going to keep, and that will be the tab at the top of the box. So I'm going to cut this at an angle right here, then flip it and cut right up that little score line and get rid of this little piece here. Then I'm going to cut up this score line, and then of course, as always, you want to cut out a little wedge. This is going to make your pieces fit together easily. So do that there, and then we're going to cut out our wedges from this piece down here too. Alright, so this is what you'll have when you get finished trimming side B. Let's move on to side A. Alright, just like before, we're going to cut straight up these two score lines right here, stopping at that first horizontal. Same right here. Get rid of this little tab or this little rectangle. Going to cut a wedge in both of these sides here. Then up here on the top, this is actually going to be a cutting line for us up here. So I'm going to flip this around, and we're going to cut straight up this score line. If any of this is not clear for you, I will have a instruction sheet step by step. It's going to have all of the measurements as well as a list of the supplies that I've used to create this project. And I will have a diagram drawing of where to score as well as where to cut. So see what I did there? I just cut along that little line that I scored. Then I'm going to cut my wedges out of each side here. Now let me show you what the purpose of all of that was. This is side A, this is side B. So your box is going to go together like this. I wanted these two little tabs that fold to the inside to be the same size. So that's why I've cut this one off, because it was much longer. So that is my purpose for doing that. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to take side A, and if you have a corner rounder, great. If you don't, you can just use your scissors and cut a little small wedge out of that. I like to use a corner rounder. Now this is a retired corner rounder from Stampin Up, but I still use it. If you don't have a corner rounder, like I said, you can just take your scissors and just trim a little wedge out here and here, just like you do on these pieces. So what we're going to do next is a little drawing. Now I don't want any ink to show up on the outside of my box, so I'm actually going to flip this over so I'm looking at the inside. Now I have a quilter's ruler right here, which enables me to see through it. My ruler is 1 inch wide, so I'm using that to my advantage. If you don't have a clear ruler like this, then you certainly can use whatever ruler you have. This just makes it easier. But then again, on the diagram, I'm going to have a lot of detail for you, showing you exactly where to do all of this cutting and giving you the measurements. So I'm basing my measurements off of this top score line and this bottom score line, as well as this one that is going up and down. So I'm going to lay my ruler down with the left hand side right beside this score line and the top even with that score line. So I know that I want to cut 1 inch, which this is going to end up being the side of my box. I'm going to make a mark right here, 3/4 of an inch down from that top score line. And then I'm going to do the same down here. So this score line is pretty much even with 4 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to come up here to the 4 and make a little dot right there. Now on this side, which will be the front, I want to come over 2 inches. So I'm going to line my 2-inch mark up right here, even with the score line. And I'm going to also line the top of my ruler up right there where I made that little dot. I'm going to come over here at the corner and make another dot. Then slide this down here, lining that 2-inch up again, lining it up across here with that dot and making one right there. Now we're going to end up cutting out this section right here. And I'm just going to use a piece of chipboard. This comes from the some of the packaging that has our papers and stuff in it, so I use it a lot when I'm using my X-Acto knife. So all I'm going to do is take my ruler and I'm going to line it up in between these 2 dots that I made here. Use my X-Acto knife and my ruler as a guide and just slice right down between those 2 marks that I made. Then I'll slide my ruler over here and I'll repeat that right there. Then turn it and do the same thing here. Then our window is popped out. Now I use the very last piece of actual window sheet on this box that I made. I thought I had another sheet in my stash and I didn't. So I've just taken a piece of plastic from one of our cellophane bags and I'm going to use this as an example to show you how this is done, but definitely you're going to want to use the window sheet because it is so much sturdier and will hold up a lot better. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my tear and tape. You can use whatever adhesive you like for this, but I really like using tear and tape because I have the ability to put it exactly where I want it to be. And I know that I want to line the edges up right next to the edge of this window. Make sure that's good and stuck down by reinforcing it with my bone folder. Then peel that adhesive backing off. Then I'm going to take my window sheet. Let me turn this back around so it's right side up. So this is my 3 3/4 inch side. This is my 4 1/2 inch side. And I'm just going to lay that right inside there and get that pressed down into that adhesive. Now I'm going to grab my scoreboard again. And with this plastic that I'm using, it's not going to matter so much. But if you have the actual window sheet, you're definitely going to want to do this. This lines up right here with my 4 1/4 inch area. So I'm just going to follow that down and score right there. Then it makes it much easier when I want to fold it over. And I can take my bone folder and just reinforce that fold by going back and forth right there. So there we have our little window sheet inside of our box. Now if you wanted to decorate the outside of this by doing some stamping or some Versamark and embossing, certainly you can. I'm just leaving mine a little more on the plain side. I'll show you that I did make another one with the designer series paper. I think this is called Lots of Love. I'll have the name of it up here on the screen for you because I'm forgetting what it is right at the moment. But you can use designer series paper if you have some that is a heavier weight, like our specialty designer series paper, which is the heavier weight like the cardstock. But you can also leave it plain like this. So let's go ahead and get our box put together. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and use my tear and tape since I have this here and handy. I would also recommend using some liquid glue for this part as well. I like using liquid glue to assemble my boxes a lot of times if they're a larger box like this. Get that adhesive stuck down. Then tear this adhesive backing away. Then what you're going to want to do at this point is the horizontal score lines you want to line up, and this cut edge you want to line it up so that it is just barely to the left-hand side of this score line. So get that lined up horizontally and vertically. There we go. So see, you can still see just that edge of that score line right there as I fold the box over. Okay, so now I'm going to fold this over like this, remove that adhesive backing from this side, and then stick this side together. Okay, now what I'm going to want to do, I'm going to leave this laying flat, take some tear and tape, run it across the front edge here, then down each side. This is a great box too, because if you were going to make several of these, you could just leave them folded flat until you need them, and then just pop them together by putting these 2 or 3 strips of adhesive on the bottom. So this is a great box for just storing until you need it. Okay, so our box is together. There's our 2 little inside tabs. Then this will just get tucked down right inside there like that. Okay, so I have my bunny here. Now you can attach him a couple of different ways. I'm just going to use my mini glue dots, and I'm going to put a couple on the bottom and stick him down inside the box, and this will just help him to stay in place and not wobble around so much while he's inside that box. Just do that right there. Give him a slight little push, and he is adhered to the bottom of that box. Now, we want to jazz the outside of this box up a little bit, so I'm going to move him over to the side. I'm going to bring in my Whisper White. I have my sentiment and my little bunny here. The bunny I'm going to stamp in my Memento ink because this is alcohol marker friendly, and that's what I want. So I'm going to stamp him right over here, kind of off the right hand side. Then I'm going to use my Berry Burst ink to stamp my sentiment. I'm going to stamp it just like this. Now I'm going to use my Stampin' Blends. I'm going to take my dark pink Pirouette, and I'm going to just run a little bit of that just inside his little ears, dot his nose, and color in his bow. Then I'm going to take my light basic gray, and I'm going to put this in places where I feel like there would just be natural shadows. Then I'm going to take my color lifter to blend those a little bit. So I'm just going to come right around the edges, just scrub that a little bit, and make those edges a little bit softer. You can also do that on his ears if you like. I'm going to cut out my pieces next. So I'm going to start out with my smallest oval, and I'm going to hold this in place with some washi tape. Get that little bunny centered up inside that oval and get that taped down. Then I'm going to take the next to the smallest oval and cut my sentiment out with that. I'm going to take my Berry Burst, and I'm going to cut one piece, or I'm going to use the smallest scalloped oval and my gold foil and use my next to smallest oval, and I'm going to cut out a second piece of my gold foil sheet with that next to the smallest oval. So my little bunny, I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back of him, pop him up on top of this Berry Burst, then use a couple of glue dots and stick that down to my gold foil sheet. Then I'm going to take dimensionals, put that on the back of my sentiment, and put that up on top of my gold foil sheet. I have my metallic edge berry burst ribbon, and yes, this is silver and my bunny is gold, but I like using silver and gold together, so it is not a big deal. This is actually the box that I shared with my live Facebook friends last night, and we made this very same box, and it was a lot of fun. So if you have not been tuning in on Monday nights at 7 Central Time for Walla Stamping Live, I want to invite you to start stopping by and spending some time with us. So that's on Walla Stamping Facebook page, Monday nights, 7 Central. So that would be 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific. So we're going to put him there, but I want to put a little piece of this ribbon behind him. So let me grab my glue dots again, because I like to do this sometimes. I'm just going to put a glue dot somewhat in the middle of this ribbon. Then I'm going to fold it over on top of itself like that. Another glue dot. I'm going to stick this down right here on my box. Then I'm going to put him on top of that ribbon, just like that. Then I can trim off after I get him placed. Then my sentiment will go right up here. On top of my ribbon. Okay. So there is our Lent chocolate bunny box all assembled and ready to give. Isn't this a very cute way to make a package to put a simple little Easter bunny in to give it as a gift to somebody? I love boxes with windows in them so that you can peek inside and see what little goodie is in there. So if you like this tutorial and you want to see more like it, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you're not going to miss out on any of my future paper crafting tutorials when I post them. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter over on my blog. When you do, you'll receive exclusive tutorials similar to this delivered right to your inbox. Now, I'm going to have a list of all of the supplies that I've used at the end of this video, as well as in the description box that's below the video, and they'll be included in the instruction sheet that you can pick up over on my blog. Also, if you're in need of any of the supplies, you can shop at my online store, and I would truly appreciate your business just by going to wallastamping.com/order-SU. So thank you for spending time with me today and allowing me to share this project with you. I hope you'll give this one a try, and I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.